The path to the Final Four kicks off tonight with the Elite Eight. I'm here to break down those matchups, talk about the prospects that are in them, how these matchups could go, my predictions, and just to have a good time. We're going to have a lot of fun here on the show. With that being said, let's go ahead and party. We are live here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also going to be on your podcast player of choice. I'm Stephen Gillespie of the No Ceilings team, and I wanted to kick off the show today in the middle of the day. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday. Hope you're enjoying your weekend like I am. A lot of stuff going on here in the Gillespie household, but I wanted to just take a few moments to talk about the Elite Eight kicking off tonight and the road to the Final Four, the fantastic Final Four that we all enjoy watching so much. Flying solo today. This is going to be a very loosely structured show. We're going to talk about the matchups tonight. Going to talk about the matchups tomorrow as well. Following the conclusion of the Elite Eight, once we have the road to the Final Four established, we will go ahead and break down the games that happen on Sunday as well. So while you're here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Please rate and review if you're listening on your podcast player. Please go ahead and do those same things. Tell your friends. We're here to have a good time, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight, the Elite Eight kicking off. Let's talk about Iowa and Illinois, a matchup that everyone predicted coming out of this corner of the bracket, right? We didn't think that Florida was going to win. We didn't think that Houston was going to win. We didn't think Nebraska was going to win. We all thought that the Iowa Hawkeyes would be facing off against the Illinois Fighting Illini. I did have Illinois at this portion of the bracket. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes over Houston, but I had Florida obviously going to the finals against Arizona. We'll talk about that team in a little bit too. But the 9 seed, Iowa, I mean, should we really be surprised that they're here? The short answer is yes, but let's think about it. Coach McCollum with Drake last year, March Madness darlings, goes out and just completely annihilates D1 level competition with these, lower end talents that he brought with him coming up into D1 basketball playing for Drake, the Bulldogs. Bennett Sturts is really the one who captivated our imaginations, who captivated the attention, of the entire March Madness audience. Once we found out that Coach McCollum was looking to take a follow-on job, once we found out that Bennett Sturts was going to be in tow with him, it was exciting. We all thought that whatever team was going to get those two were going to lay a path forward to lay this, solid, steady, consistent foundation. And someday they would probably be a really good program after a little bit of time. Year one, Coach McCollum in the Elite Eight with Bennett Sturts and a team of people who, yes, we knew Alvaro Figueres. He was one of the more prized transfer ups coming in from Robert Morris. He had an interesting season, but this is not a team that we thought was going to be as far as they are. A lot of it has to do with, yes, the resiliency of the players. Yes, the level of talent that is of Bennett Sturts. Yes, Alvaro Figueres stepping up and playing like the player many of us thought that he could be in the offseason. But the coaching of Coach McCollum, this motion offense, this multiple options to get into within the natural flow of the offense, this gritty defense, never say die, never give up, always playing the right way. Coach McCollum being incredibly animated on the sidelines. Everything that makes college basketball fantastic is completely encapsulated within this Iowa Hawkeyes team. Cinderella, in the traditional sense, may be dead. And I don't mean to say that to be a Debbie Downer. With college basketball, the landscape of that changing, yes, with NIL, yes, with the transfer portal, players making money, having more say in where they're going, fewer long-term commitments. It's changing things, right? And change is scary. The human condition, people only hate two things the way they are and change. And, that's where we're constantly in that state of flux within the college sports world as well. In the traditional sense, Cinderella might be dead. But that leaves us with the Cinderella of the Iowa Hawkeyes. Are they a D1 program? Yes. We know the answer to that question. Stephen, why are you asking that question? Just setting the table. But this is not the team that anyone thought was going to advance this far within the tournament. Again, I opened. We needed to lay some sort of groundwork, some sort of foundation, something to attract more and more talented players so that someday they can be featured in Elite Eights, possibly in Final Fours, possibly even a national championship contender. This team was not supposed to be here, and yet they are. So even though Iowa is a prestigious school, even though Iowa is a D1 program known for a lot of different things, they are now what I would consider to be a new era Cinderella story for all the reasons that I laid out. And shout out to the chat. Antoine Willis says, yo, what's up, Steven? How are you? My guy Antoine, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out here on a Saturday with me before the games kick off. Appreciate all the love and support that the No Ceilings universe has been giving to us throughout the season. It's crazy to think that college basketball is almost over. But coming into this game against Illinois, let's talk about what Iowa did against Nebraska. 77-71 win on the back and on the shoulders, laying at the feet of Bennett Sturts, who had 20 points on 7 of 15 shooting from the floor, only 3 of 9 from deep, 3-3 from the free throw line, had 4 assists to 0 turnovers and 2 rebounds, no stocks. The fact that Bennett Sturts is putting up 20 points in these games with the amount of coverage that, college basketball defenses are paying attention to, it's been a running joke of mine that, the Madden coverage, the double bracket where the best players are getting double teamed and stuff like that. That's the type of defense that Bennett Sturts has been accustomed to facing, dating back to Drake. Obviously, this season, with the struggle of a player like Alvaro Figueres to find consistency, a good cast of supporting players here, but really no one else that on a night-to-night basis is going to be able to step up and provide in a way that a Bennett Sturts does consistently. It's phenomenal stuff. Playing up against Nebraska, who is a high-paced team, we know that the shots were going to come from deep on that team. Nebraska did hoist up 38 three-pointers in that game. Only shot 34%. Price Sanford showed up. There was a lot of other players, the son of the coach, Sam Hoiberg, son of coach Fred Hoiberg, who coaches the Huskers, 0 of 3 from deep. Rink Mass, 0 of 7 from deep. Buchton Cell, 0 4 from deep. There was just no help for Price Sanford at all. Bennett Sturts playing clutch moments in this game, yes, as a scorer, but also as a facilitator. The comfort, the ease that he has to get to his spots as a scorer is the thing that he often gets the most amount of attention for. I would also offer up that the playmaking, even though, yes, it was only 4 assists, timely passes, understanding how the defense is just kind of maneuvering around him and anticipating where his teammates are going to be. Phenomenal stuff. So it was great to see, Bennett Sturts play in the game the way that he did. And if you're watching live, yes, I'm an old man. I have paper notes that I'm just kind of flipping through. So if you saw the page, it is what it is. Actually, tomorrow is my birthday. I will be 36 years old. So old man Steven has to have his little physical, speaking aids, for lack of a better term. But Iowa is going to be going up against the Illinois Fighting Illini, who, in a game that was a rock fight against Houston, we knew that it was going to be a rock fight. Houston plays a very hard to compete against level of competition or level of play, no matter the competition. Illinois wins that game 65-55 on a game where Keaton Wagler, the prize prospect within this game, depending on who you speak to, could go anywhere from like, let's say 5 to 10ish, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on who you speak to. Had 13 points against Houston on 4 of 14 shooting, 3 of 6 from deep, 2 of 5 from the free throw line. Did have 12 rebounds, 3 assists to 1 turnover, 2 blocks, and a steal. Now, if you just look at some of these numbers, particularly the 4 of 14 from the floor, you would assume that Keaton Wagler had a poor game, a little impact, little little impact on the game, little footprint. Obviously was flanked by people who were to be able to help him out. He was tied for the second leading scorer in this game. David Mirkovic had 14 points on 13 shots. And then we also had 13 points off the bench from Andrei Stojakovic. So interesting game for the Fighting Illini, who really, again, rock fight. Houston Cougars play a very rough and tumble, hard to compete against game. Keaton Wagler, even though he was 4-14 from the floor, did get to his spots. He was able to find ways to get around the defense. This kind of shift gears, change of pace, run one way, that was hard for me to say, decelerate, shift, attack the defense at another angle. Even though he wasn't efficient from the floor, he did get to the free throw line, shot 5 free throws in the game. And yes, did the Keaton Wagler thing where he was really, really efficient from beyond the arch. Something that I've appreciated about him throughout the entire season has been Keaton Wagler, depending on the night, will lead your team in almost any category if you need it. Will he be the leading scorer for your team? That really depends. Tonight or that night, he wasn't, but he did lead the team in rebounds. He actually had a game high in rebounds against Houston. That's saying a lot, right? Tied for the most assists on his team with 3. Had 2 blocks, which led the entire game in blocks. He, by himself, had the same amount of blocks as the Houston Cougars. And defense is not necessarily something that we think of first whenever we talk about Keaton Wagler. So different ways to impact the game. He is a tricky evaluation because we look at him and we think, okay, immediately there is a strength deficit, which is true. That's not something that's going to get fixed in his one season in college. So you have to look at how he's getting to the spots that he's getting to, how he's impacting the game, how he's thinking the game. And that's something that Keaton has that not every prospect in this class does. The anticipation on both ends of the court, really, how he can read the opponent, no matter what side of the ball he's playing on. He's very, very smart, and he's very well balanced, even though he lacks that strength. So balance, feel, natural, funky cadence that he plays with. He can slither and snake his way into different spots on the court. Just a lot of fun to see. So that leaves us with talking about Iowa and Illinois playing against each other. This is tough because, again, I had Florida in the Iowa spot, and I had Florida beating Illinois, largely because I thought Florida could match the physicality that Illinois brings to the table. I believe Illinois is listed as the tallest team in college basketball. Iowa is not that. Iowa is not a very big team. Illinois also has 2 guards that you kind of have to worry about with Keaton Wagler, the aforementioned Wagler, but also Kylan Boswell. And then you have guys like Mirkovic, guys like Stojakovic, the Ivisic brothers. There are a number of players here on Illinois that you have to pay attention to. Jake Davis can get hot. Ben Humerhouse could come in off the bench and do a lot of great things. There's no shortage of players here for Illinois, but if we're logically analyzing these teams, there's no reason why Iowa should be here. So how do we quantify the surprising ability that they have to be able to uproot, upend, topple over the Goliaths that they are going to be lined up against? They already beat the Florida team that I thought was going to beat Illinois. How can I possibly rule them out? What's the coaching discrepancy between these two? Coach Underwood for Illinois is a fantastic coach. I don't know if he's particularly has the advantage over Coach McCollum. And what we've seen so far in March Madness is it doesn't matter who the dogs are that you have on your team. Who is the coach that's going to put their players in the ultimate position to succeed? I don't know that Illinois' Coach Underwood, who does a fantastic job, I don't know if he has the advantage in this situation. Makes it really, really difficult. I'm probably leaning Illinois in this matchup, knowing that Bennett Sturts has an insane ability to be a one-man wrecking crew on the offensive end, knowing that Alvaro Figueres has turned into one of the more fun kind of sub-stories within the game. I mean, hitting the game winner over Florida with his mom in attendance for the third ever time in his college basketball playing career. It's hard, man. Like that's what makes March Madness March Madness. So I don't feel great about it. I'm gonna go Illinois, but I'm totally ready to be. I'm not even gonna be disappointed, obviously, if Iowa wins because that's just more chaos, and we're agents of chaos here over at No Ceilings NBA. So in that matchup, I'm just gonna go ahead and lean Illinois because I think the size is too much. I think that they have a guard in Keaton Wagler who, if everything strikes right, could be just as efficient and deadly to the opponent as Bennett Sturts. I think the Ivisic brothers could wreck house. Jake Davis, Ben Humerhouse is an X factor. Colin Boswell could be an X factor in this game too. I'm leaning Illinois. I obviously don't feel great about it. So let's shift gears and talk about the late game. By the way, that Iowa game against Illinois is going to be taking place at the very common time of 6:09 p.m. Eastern, so 3:09 p.m. Pacific time out there. A very strange time. I'm going to be there regardless. 6:09 p.m. Eastern time. Let's shift to the late game, which is Purdue versus Arizona. That's taking place at, looks like this says 8:49 p.m. Eastern time. Another fantastic, great game. I am excited for this one. And I'm looking in the chat. For real, man, the NBA playoffs are about to start. Someone says Holy Unk or UNC. That's K Cloven in the chat. I guess I am an unk. I mean, I literally am an uncle, but it is what it is. I take my age as a badge of honor here. But the late game, Purdue, the Boilermakers, the number 2 seed against Arizona, the number 1 seed in their region. And to be honest with you, like a lot of people's favorite to win this, I believe looking over at ESPN, the popular picks to win it all this year were Duke actually is the number 1 team and then Arizona second, which is crazy to me. I have Arizona on my bracket, and yes, as a Razorback fan, I did pick Arizona to beat the Razorbacks because of the Florida game. That was a miserable watch. Let's talk Purdue first. They beat the Texas Longhorns 79-77 with a beautiful tip-in shot. This March Madness, yes, Cinderella might be dead in the traditional sense. We have fantastic matchups in March Madness this year. We have these Goliath programs with great prospects going up against one another, and so many of these games have come down to the wire. This Texas Longhorn against the Purdue Boilermakers game was no exception, where at the last moment, I believe it was Braden Smith goes up for a layup, misses. TKR, Trey Kaufman-Wren, goes up on the putback to put the game in the advantage of the Purdue Boilermakers, alleviating the possibility of an overtime, which would have been fun, but I had Purdue winning the game anyway, so I was very happy to see that the Boilermakers advanced. Trey Kaufman-Wren had 20 points, 8 rebounds. That was it. And I say that was it as if that's not impressive. It truly and honestly is. Half of those assists came on both sides, offensive side. The other half came on the defensive side. Clean split there. But Braden Smith obviously is the name that a lot of us draft heads, draft purists, if you will, are paying particular attention to for the Purdue Boilermakers. He had 16 points on 16 shots with 6 of 16 from the floor. Didn't make a single three-pointer, surprisingly, was 4 of 6 from the free throw line. had 5 assists to 2 turnovers, 2 boards, and 2 steals as well. Third leading scorer on the team that night was tied for a game high in assists. Dalen Swain actually tied that, funnily enough, the other prospect on Texas who a lot of us draft heads are looking at to see where we're going to put players on our big boards, things of that nature. Braden Smith, even though he was inefficient on the night, felt very comfortable getting to his spots against Texas. I mean, having the courage to get to these pull-up fadeaway middies on the kind of block extended on the baseline over against a guy like Vokatitis, being able to cash in shots like that, get to the free throw line, that elbow that Corey Tulaba of No Ceilings talks about a lot, that if you're going to be undersized, or even if you're an of size or an above average sized point guard, getting to that elbow on those pull-ups unlocks so much for an offense, for your teammates, for yourself, so on and so forth. Braden Smith is a natural at getting to that position, no matter who's lined up against him. And it was great to see him be able to do that against Texas. I'm curious to see what that looks like against Arizona. But Braden Smith, I'm expecting him to do his normal Braden Smith things. He might be inefficient, but he's going to have a huge impact on the game nonetheless. Even on the defensive end, just his ability to kind of sit back and read as this undersized point guard free safety, jumping passing lanes where he's legit curling around the bottom of the baseline, going up to the elbow or to the wing where the pass is anticipated to go. He will just kind of come up behind the player, jump that passing lane, and turn it into a transition layup. Very fun to see. Pride of Russellville, Arkansas, just like me. Got to root for my guy Braden Smith in any matchup. Even though I do have Arizona winning, I'm hoping for a good game from Braden Smith here. I want to also just briefly mention Fletcher Lawyer, who, surprise, is going to be mentioned on my piece tomorrow if you're watching or listening on Saturday. Sunday, I'm going to have the last kind of edition of my sleeper prospects of the week, just with where we are in the season. This is a natural spot for me to close that column. Fewer players, fewer opportunities for lesser known or maybe even unheralded prospects to surprise us. So Fletcher Lawyer is going to be mentioned in this. And of course, if you've been paying attention to us here on the No Ceilings YouTube channel, you will have seen Tyler Metcalf and myself talk about Fletcher Lawyer, and he might not be a popular draft name. Would not surprise me at all if he ends up being a NBA player in the vein of a John Polakidis. Shout out to Corey again. Polakidis is doing stuff for the Dallas Mavericks in the month of March. Not a guy that a lot of people outside of Corey had on draft boards taking seriously. You could look at a guy like Sam Merrill. You can look at a guy like AJ Green. There's so many players in the NBA who are not tracked as being draftable players, but who end up kind of right team, right place, right time, right system, right sort of second set of circumstances with the salary cap, things of that nature, having to sign players off of vet minimums who are specialists, things like that. It's not difficult to imagine Fletcher Lawyer being an NBA player in that regard. Has had 3 straight consecutive seasons averaging around 44% shooting from deep. He has improved as just a number 1 or number 2 option, depending on how you view the value of the point, the playmaking point guard, things like that. Fletcher Lawyer being the best scorer on this team, who has improved as a rebounder, a defender, even a playmaker. His assist to turnover ratio is actually really nice. It's not hard to imagine Fletcher Lawyer being in the NBA. Does he have as many paths to being an NBA player as some of the other prospects in this class? Of course not. That's why you're not seeing him mentioned in the vein of, let's say, a Milan Momcilovic. Doesn't have the size, doesn't have the compartments within his scouting profile that give you a safer floor, if you will, to being an NBA player. But he's really, really good at the one thing that all NBA teams want. And all it takes is one team to have a specific roster construction with salary cap limitations and no money to spend on players who open the floor for their best players. easy to imagine a world where Fletcher Lawyer comes in and is that AJ Green, that John Polakidis, that Sam Merle type of a player. So looking forward to this game. Purdue coming in with riding a pretty big wave, and I'm going to take off my homer hat. I'm going to put on my heartbreak hat, if you will, and I'm going to talk about the Arizona Wildcats, who, even though I imagine the game going essentially the way that it went between the Arizona Wildcats and the Arkansas Razorbacks, it was still rough to watch, for someone who is a Darius Acuff fan. He had a fantastic game for the Razorbacks. 28 points on 8 of 19 shooting, was 11 of 14 from the free throw line. Malik Thomas had a solid game. Billy Richmond had a solid game. Arizona is just too damn big. They're too deep. They have so many players who can put a hurt on you, which is why I picked them, obviously, to beat the Razorbacks, and why I have them as my national championship on my bracket, or national champion on my bracket. Stop with Braden Burries, who, listen, when I was watching this game, I was dealing with a little bit of copium. I had a heck of a day the day of that game. We are not going to dive into that, but watching this game, the Razorbacks are getting their teeth kicked in, and that's hard to deal with as a fan. But as someone who has had Braden Burries as the sixth prospect on my big board, I was pleased to watch him put up the 23 points on 11 shots, the 5 rebounds, the 2 assists. No defensive metrics logged on a stat sheet, but you know that this guy is defensively versatile to where he can defend the 1 and the 2. We saw him do that throughout the night against the Razorbacks. Braden Burries, or as I like to call him when he's in transition, Braden Blurries, is fantastic. I even kind of like halfway jokingly tweeted out watching this game that I could envision a world where Burries yields top 4 returns. Now, people might say that I'm crazy, that it's late in the season, that we have officially reached a new stage within the cycle to where anybody could be better than anybody. And I'm very well aware that I haven't been able to see Caleb Wilson play basketball recently, and I really, really liked him. Yes, I'm very well aware that Cam Boozer, who is also still in the tournament, we're going to talk about him here in a second, I'm very well aware of what he brings to the table offensively, and you've heard ad nauseum, just like me, and how much of a winner he is, and he wins at every level. Yes, I'm kind of like talking down at that. That's the Tim Duncan effect, right? Like, it's boring to talk about the winning. But if you like basketball and you like watching it, Cam Boozer is a fun player. And we're going to give him his flowers here in a second. The point is that Braden Burries, who is a little bit older of a freshman, he's sophomore aged. I don't care. Like, cool, I'm drafting a sophomore then. And I'm still very pleased with what I'm watching him do on the court. A lot of people like LeBaron Philon, even though he's a sophomore. I don't care that he's an older freshman. Call him a sophomore if you want. Doesn't change my evaluation on him. He is strong. He's athletic. He plays with good pace. He plays with good feel. He can play and defend the 1 and the 2. He's strong. The play that I point to in this the play that I pointed to in this matchup was when Burries is attacking the basket, gets the ball pretty much at the free throw line, throws this little jab step and uses his shoulder to create separation, stays on balance, hits this little fadeaway midi shot, and it goes in. That's a pro level move. I don't know how many guards in this class can do that sort of a thing that Braden Burries did in that game. It's those little... It's not little in the sense that, like, wow, like a lot of people pointed to that clip, it circulated, it went viral, if you will. But those moves I don't think are celebrated to the level of like a cool behind the back pass, an alley-oop, take you off the bounce 3-point dribble, anything like that. But that is a pro move. Creating separation with your strength while maintaining your balance and having the accuracy to complete the play. That's NBA level stuff. And I tweeted out that I might mess around and move him to 4 on my board. I understand the implications of that. I was having a good time. Some adult beverages may have been consumed that night. It is what it is. Just a tip of the cap to the fact that Braden Burries, we all are experts at this point of the season, right? We know exactly how good everyone is going to be. But yet again, we're always surprised whenever they actually go to the NBA and they actually play NBA games on how a draft order is reorganized based on the production in the pros, because there's a level of projection involved in the scouting that we're doing, right? I'm not going to be surprised if Braden Burries ends up being the best guard in this class, ends up making us all look silly for having him in this like tier below a Darius Acuff Jr., a Darren Peterson, anything like that. Is it anticipated? No. That's why I have him 6 on my board. I'm just not going to be surprised because we're always surprised, right? Koa Pete for the Arizona Wildcats, player who I have doubted, to put it completely transparent, player who gave room for interpretation that he might not be as ready as what we thought he was going to be following that 30-point opening night performance against the defending champion Florida Gators. Dealt with injury, dealt with the reluctancy to shoot three-pointers, dealt with inconsistent defensive performances, dealt with playing down to the level of competition. If he wasn't going up against a marquee team like a Florida Gators, he would play down to the level of competition. Also in a weird ecosystem, right? Where if Arizona is rolling and Koa Pete is in and he makes a mistake, hey, you're out the game. Tobe Awaka, go on and take his place. We have a championship that we're going to win. You don't really see that. He's also on a team with Braden Burry stealing a little bit of the shine. Ivan Karchenkov, who has been one of my favorite risers throughout the process for me personally, has been a guy who's taken away a little bit of that shine. Jaden Bradley, another player who may be one of the more unheralded guard prospects in this class and makes us all look silly that we're barely talking about him as a second rounder. Mount Krivos in the middle could potentially be the best big man in this class. It's not going to be surprising to me if that happens. In the middle of all this, we have inconsistencies from Koa Pete. What is the profile projection of him? Archetypically speaking, who is he in the NBA? Is he the second coming of Aaron Gordon? Is he Jaime Jaquez? Is he something that we haven't seen before? All of these things are on the table. The thing that I've been enjoying watching so far is that steady incline. Conference tournament, NCAA tournament, instilling confidence that, okay, the player who was right up there in terms of accolades with Cam Boozer is hitting his stride in the season when it matters most. Yes, like missed time with injury. Unfair, maybe, that we were a little bit more harsh as a draft community in our rankings with him. Still making it hard, man. Like I tweeted earlier today that ranking positions or spots 12 through 30 in this class is like John Wick level impossible on the impossible task meter. So I've enjoyed watching Koa Pete. I think that he is one of these players who, people will tell you one way or the other how much should we let March Madness like sway our evaluation of a player. For a guy like Koa Pete, it might be really apt that we pay particular attention to how he's performing against these higher levels of competition, these really great teams in these high pressure moments. Like, how is he performing in these? I've been saying all season long that I think that he was probably going to be a better pro than he is a college player. But right now, what he's doing in college has been pretty impressive. So maybe even the pro projection with him is going to be all that much more impressive for him. Hard to say. You heard me mention guys like Tobe Awaka might be a sleeper second round guy. Who knows? Depending on what combine, returning, all these caveats, all these variables that we just don't know with where we are in the season right now. Might sound ridiculous to say that Tobe Awaka could be a second round guy, but you never know. But let's talk about Ivan Karchenkov, who, when we did our preview piece over at the Ground Floor collaboration with us at No Ceilings and the folks over at the Field of 68, we were talking about matchups, and we were talking about how if you had to hide Darius Acuff Jr. on a player, Karchenkov might be the guy. Ivan was third on this team in scoring over Krivos, over Bradley, over a high-scoring Tobe Awaka. He was 7 of 10 from the free throw line. He had 4 of 6 from the floor, 5 assists to just 3 turnovers, 1 steal, and 3 rebounds. I was reluctant to tell the guys, or I was reluctant in agreeing with the guys that put Darius Acuff Jr. on Karchenkov, because even though this guy does not shoot, right? He was 0-1 from this game. It's long been documented, it's long been reported that the shooting with Karchenkov, even dating back to his international playing days, has just not been spectacular. It's probably not something that we can bet on, pending any sort of like crazy mechanical shift, a shooting coach, whatever the case may be. He's still not a zero on the offensive end. Like, this dude is constantly, like, he is motion personified, continuous motion, constant, perpetual motion personified. Always cutting, always diving, always going for second chance points. Moves the ball well, is like a connective guy, not someone who's going to break you down off of the bounce and throw a lob over the top of you, but a very good connective passer. Always, he's running halfback dives on you on the offensive end. It just wants to run right through your face. That's the type of player he is. Not the type of guy I want Darius Acuff Jr. defending, and I'm a huge Acuff guy. PG1 on my board. But it was great to see Karchenkov put up a game that he had. Mount Krivos, again, all these dudes have to eat. It's a very egalitarian style offense that's being ran here. Arizona has at least 8 dudes who would be playing big-time roles at other colleges if they weren't playing for the Wildcats. Krivos is one of them. He could be on an offense where he's just being spoon-fed. I'm surprised that he only had 9 shot attempts in the game against Arkansas, dating back to that Florida game that I was talking about. I thought that they were just going to spam the heck out of Krivos. That would have been the route that I went. Ultimately, Arizona knows what they're doing. They still blew out my Razorbacks, whatever. And Jaden Bradley, fantastic game. I'm loving the mid-range stuff that this guy is doing. I'm loving the aggressive nature that he plays with on the defensive end. I like that he is a threat from deep, and I like how he just gets to these little spots in the mid-range, and he can shoot those shots off platform on movement, and they still go in. He can bank them in, he can cash them in, just nothing but net. Very fun game. So that leaves us to the matchup tonight, Purdue, Arizona. I'm going to rock with Arizona. Clough, I don't know how he's going to handle Krivos. Braden Smith is going to have to go up against a slew of guards who are going to give it to him on both ends of the floor. Fletcher Lawyer, I would put, Karchenkov on him. I'm not saying that Lawyer can't handle that. He's, like I mentioned, he's 3 consecutive seasons shooting about 44% from deep. He is the team's leading scorer this year. He has picked it up. His confidence is at an all-time high. Karchenkov is something different. Like, you don't just run across a level of defender like him on a night-to-night basis. I put Karchenkov on Lawyer. I'm putting both of the guards just at different intervals, at different stages of the game against Braden Smith. And then Trey Kaufman-Wren, Koa Pete, that could be a very fun matchup. I would imagine that TKR gets a lot of Tobe Awaka in this game too. And then Pete could be the guy who swings the game. He could be the guy, depending on what the cross matchups look like, what the mismatch hunting looks like for Arizona. He could be the guy that swings the game. Again, he had 21 points in the win against Arkansas, riding all this confidence. His confidence is sky high. I'm loving what I'm seeing from him in these games. Let's, man, there's a lot of conversations here going on in the chat. Shout out to the chat. I'm seeing Norn Rad in here. I'm seeing regional manager Michael Scott. I have to believe that that's the real Michael Scott. I don't have any evidence to suggest otherwise, but a lot of conversations in here. Really enjoying the chat. Shout out to you guys. Arizona over Purdue, and I have Iowa over Illinois. So let's shift gears here, and we're going to talk about the games that are going to be taking place tomorrow, March 29th. Yes, that is a nationally recognized Stephen Gillespie Day because that is my birthday. The first game is going to be interesting because at 2:15 p.m. Eastern time, and thank God that these games on Sundays are going to be earlier. I do not want to be up late on a Sunday night breaking down stuff. Yes, I want to be here with you guys, but man, I've been tired going into work on Mondays. You guys, I'm sure you have too. 2 p.m. East, 2:15 p.m. Eastern time, Tennessee versus Michigan. Now, a lot of us did expect Michigan. I don't know why I had Virginia. I actually do know why, but I had Virginia coming out of this corner of the bracket, beating Michigan. Glad to see that Michigan is here, but Michigan is going to be going up against Tennessee, the team that beat the Virginia team that I was excited to watch. This is going to be a styles make fights type of a matchup because we know who the big dogs are coming in on both sides of the floor. Let's talk about Michigan and how they got to be where they are. Now, last night at the time of this recording, while we're live, Michigan beat Alabama pretty handedly, 90-77. Even though Alabama gave them a nice little jump scare to open up the first half, second half, was all Michigan. LeBaron Fallon was lights out in the first half, went through a big stretch in the second half where he just could not get things going. Found it a little bit in the latter stages of the game. Yaxel Lindenborg. Now, if you go all the way back to the first round, where Yaxel, I think, had like 9 points in the very first game of the tournament, I talked about how it's great that we're seeing guys like Roddy Gale, how it's great that we're seeing guys like Trey Kenny, Elliot Cadeau find their confidence in the early stages of the second round or in the first round. That way, in the subsequent rounds, depending on how far Michigan makes it, everybody's confidence on is as sky high as it could possibly be. And that way, Yaxel still has the ability to impact games the way that he has. If he needs to be bailed out, there's plenty of guys around him who are filling themselves and are doing really, really good things. That's what we saw with Michigan against Alabama. Yaxel Lindenberg was the top dog in this matchup. 23 points on 8 of 12 shooting from the floor, was 4 of 5 from 3, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, had 12 rebounds and 7 assists. Yes, Yax was flirting with a triple-double in this game. He also had 2 steals to only 2 turnovers. 2 of his rebounds came on the offensive end. Very assertive. I love the confidence that he was showing from deep. I was surprised to go back and look at the box score and see that he, quote unquote, only shot 5 3-pointers. It felt like the majority of his shot diet was from beyond the arc. Handling the ball, attacking the basket, really feeling himself. Those 7 assists, a lot of these were the Kevin Love outlet variety of passes. Now, some of his turnovers did come from that same style of a pass as well. But Yax has really stepped up. Love the aggressiveness on the boards. Love the aggressiveness on the defensive end. That's what we liked from him at UAB last season when he was this big fish, small pond, only fish in a small pond, really. Seeing him transfer up to Michigan, seeing him almost kind of play the 3, a role that we haven't really seen him at just because of how big and athletic he has been. Breaking people down off the bounce is no small feat against really any team in college basketball. Doing it against Arizona, it's funny because Yaxel was pretty offended apparently in the post-game press conference that this freshman was lined up against him. I don't know who he would have picked to defend against him because Amari Allen was the aforementioned freshman that Yaxel was pretty giddy about referencing in the post-game press conference, who was also the Wisconsin Gatorade Player of the Year. He's been one of the more productive and kind of versatile freshmen throughout the season. Doesn't matter. Yaxel took him to task and kind of let people know about it after the game. Loved watching him facilitate, loved watching him defend and rebounding, but just the confidence that he has as a scorer has just been sky high. I am very pleased that I still have him where I do, despite that he is going to be one of the older prospects within this draft class. I believe I saw someone tweet out earlier today that Cooper Flagg, who is a rookie in the NBA, is like 4 years and 2 months younger than Yaxel Lindenborg. I knew that he was old, but seeing it put into that context is like, wow, okay, you're drafting a guy who's pretty close to his prime. I'm curious to see what NBA teams are going to want to do, but again, shows why he has just been so dominant in college basketball. Even though he is old, the development story is late. We've heard a lot about that. But Yaxel was really on an island in terms of production this game. as a starter outside of Elliot Cadeau, who was fun to watch. Just do it's over. I believe it was to Latrell Wrightsell, excuse me. But Roddy Gale and Trey McKinney, I just want to shout those guys out real quick. Roddy Gale, who's a guy who played at Ohio State, is at Michigan now. Very productive guy, really unheralded in terms of his viability to this team. Trey McKinney, as a freshman coming in off the bench, with Kaysen being out with the injury, has really stepped his game up to another level. Was 3 of 5 from deep, 5 of 7 from the floor, 17 points to 1 rebound and 1 steal. I understand that the versatility in the box score, like the overarching impact from McKinney, isn't great. There's a lot of guys who are just kind of playing a role at Michigan this year with the depth of this team. I have just been very fun to see. I've had so much fun watching McKinney kind of like grow up right in front of our eyes, the level of confidence that he's playing with. Could be an X factor moving forward in the game against Tennessee. So speaking of Tennessee, let's go ahead and break down a very bizarre, very peculiar game where Tennessee beats the Iowa State Cyclones 76-62. Tennessee out rebounds Iowa State, who is without Joshua Jefferson, the kind of the star player. You could argue the leader on this team. I would refer you to Tamin Lipsey if you were talking about leader, like number one leader on the team. But understanding the on-court impact of a Joshua Jefferson to Iowa State, losing that, words don't do it justice how important Joshua Jefferson was to this Iowa State team. The fact that they made it this far is a great credit to the coaching, great credit to the rest of the team stepping up. Speaking of stepping up, Milan Momcilovic did not really do that. Now, this is a player who we've been talking about where shooting nearly 50% on his three-pointers, which in of itself is impressive, but when you consider the level of difficulty, the level of volume that he's doing it at, can't be understated how fantastic of a shooter Milan Momcilovic has been for the Cyclones this year. Only has 6 points, was 2 of 9 from the floor, 2 of 8 from deep, 3 assists, which is pretty high for him, but he matched that with 3 turnovers and had 1 steal. This is a big deal because Tennessee shot 51% from the floor. Milan's 9 shot attempts factored into Iowa State only being 21 of 54 from the floor overall and shooting 39% as a team. So having a guy who holds that much stake, who is a pillar of your offense, have that bad, that severe of an off night, obviously it was a huge detriment and played into the fact that Tennessee beats this team by 14 points. Lipsey, fantastic game from him. Love to see that. Nate Heisey, 1 of 7 from deep. Lipsey, 1 of 4. Jamarian Bateman, who has been one of these freshmen that Iowa State has that a lot of us are excited about watching moving forward, only 0 of 3. Just a rough game, man. The fact that they weren't connecting and they got out rebounded to the level that they did, even though they had fewer turnovers and fouled less, Tennessee just kind of put the hurt on them. Let's talk about Nate Ament, who kind of made people have the good old fashioned "I told you so" take swirling around the internet. And I don't want to downplay this at all because Nate Ament had a huge game, 18 points, tied for a game high, led his team in scoring, was 6 of 10 from the floor, 3 of 4 from deep, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. One of the overall better defensive games from Nate Ament. A game in which he moves in a way that, man, if he moved like this the entire season, yes, I understand that he had a little bit of an ankle thing going on at the latter stages of the season. He has just felt like any Ed and Nettie fans out there, Plank from Ed and Nettie. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's okay if you don't. That would be my comparison for Nate Ament through most of the season. Very stiff, very rigid, very angular, just a very little malleability, flexibility to his game. For the most part of the season, Nate had some very fun moments of this game, knocking down wide open 3-pointers, knocking down these sort of elbow extended, post extended, leaning mid range shots, hitting very tough shots. Most of his passes, most of his assists in this game did come in like a stationary nature. Did find players on the move, did find players cutting to the basket. And again, defensively, rejecting shots near the rim, along the perimeter, tipping passes, challenging shots. One of the best overall games from Nate Ament. I wish it was more consistent. I really do. And the fact that Nate, this late in the season, is putting up one of his better performances. I talked about this on the Field of 68 show with Corey and Metcalf as well, that it just takes one team to look at him at his size, to look at the shooting motion, and to just get infatuated with what he could be on a team to kind of fall in love with that. I I don't know that I'm still like this one game isn't going to vault him up my board by any means. I have been lower on his lottery level outcome potential in terms of like production for a while. This one game doesn't necessarily change that for me. It's just good to see him have another good performance. And as long as Tennessee is in this tournament and Nate Ament can have more games like this, it's going to be huge for his draft stock. It's going to be huge for his projection, and maybe even the perception of even people like myself to how he's going to be able to translate in the NBA. Fantastic game from him, going up against Iowa, knocking them out of the position where they were. So, with that being said, let's talk about the matchup between Tennessee and Michigan. Tennessee is one of these teams where they match kind of helter-skelter guard play with guys like Boswell, with guys, of course, like my cousin Jacoby Gillespie, just guards who were kind of frantic and really make the defense uneasy, kind of like these water bug type movers where they're omnidirectional, can change pace laterally, advance the ball, back the ball out, hit a step back, things like that. They match that with very bludgeoning style of play, with whether that's Carey, whether that's Estrella, whether that is our guy Felix Okpara, who has also been playing pretty well recently. They're going up against another team who can do all those same things. Ade Mara just changes the geometry of your offense. Yaxel Lindenborg is very malleable up and down the lineup. Morris Johnson Jr. didn't have his best game, but on any given night could be a guy who's giving you 14 and 8 with a block or two. And then if you want to talk about guard play, Michigan's guards, again, talking about guys like Elliot Cadeau having the confidence that he's having, McKinney coming in off the bench, Roddy Gale coming in off the bench. Michigan has no shortage of guards either. So with that being the case, I'm going to go Michigan here in this matchup. Tennessee has just consistently been surprising me. I want to see what Nate Ament does against any one of these front court players. I think this is going to be a good proxy for how he might handle like an NBA level front court. Very excited to see how that game goes. And then let's go ahead and get to the last game here that's going to be taking place on Sunday. And again, shout out to the schedulers. Last game on a Sunday is going to start at 5:05 p.m., which means that we could be doing a breakdown here at No Ceilings at, let's call it 8 o'clock, just cleanly. It could even be earlier. Yukon and Duke. I had this matchup called on my bracket. Very excited. I'm just kidding. I did not. I had St. John's and Yukon, but very excited for Yukon to advance past Michigan State. Even though I didn't have Duke in this matchup, I'm excited for like draft purposes, what the implications of Cam Boozer playing in a game like this, potentially beating Coach Hurley and a team who has won, a team who has players who have won multiple championships on this team. I'm excited to watch this game. This could be the most fun game of the entire weekend slate. So, Yukon Duke. I want to touch on as I hit my head on my microphone stanchion. Sorry if that came across. I'm getting a little antsy here. The Duke St. John's game, an amazing game. I had St. John's winning this game. They only lose by 5. It could have gone a bunch of different ways, but it went the way that it went with Duke winning 80-75. Isaiah Evans, let's kick it off with him. A player who is a good three-point shooter, has evolved into being a good downhill driver, had 4 rebounds in this game as well, no defensive metrics, was 25 points on the night though on 10 of 15 shooting, 4 of 8 from deep, 1 of 5 from the free throw line. The comfortability that he has to get up any shot from outside the three-point line is his kind of special ability, which has allowed him to become a better driver because of the gravity that he has. He has these quick little pump fake, relocate, sidestep, get the three-point shot up, which he can kind of parlay into pump fake, dribble to the side, and attack because people are so worried about that repositioning and second look that he can provide while he's shooting from outside. He got on a heater against St. John's. Again, 25 points, 4 of 8 from deep. He was just nuclear. And talking about how almost impossible it is to rank prospects within the outside the top 10 and on down, you can throw Isaiah Evans into that because depending on the night, he can look like he belongs in the lottery. He can look like he belongs as an early second round draft pick. He is a specialist by nature. I understand that he has added to his game. I don't know how much of the driving that teams are going to have an appetite to turn to him for. And he is a little bit slimmer. He has gotten strong though, and he hasn't played scared throughout the season. Fantastic game from him. Cam Boozer, the name that everybody wants to talk about, right? 22 points on 7 of 16 shooting from the floor, was 8 of 9 from the free throw line, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 turnovers, and a block. I don't know if people are going to change their mind on Cam Boozer at this point of the season. You're either a part of the campaign where it all starts with winning with Cam Boozer, that he's a consummate winner. If you want to win, draft a winner, and your program will be all the much better for it. It's probably true. But the concerns that have been there, him being able to be scalable on the defensive end, how athletic is he going to be? Is he going to be great defending out in space? Are you going to be okay with him doing those kind of like half-hearted closeouts to where he is giving corner three-point shots up and clapping his hand, shaking his head, and trying to get it back to you on the offensive end, which he's more than capable of doing. Still, fantastic performance, dropping 22. Had matchups where he was had the Dylan Mitchell assignment. Something that I tweeted out that I want to put words on here on the podcast platform. I feel like I constantly underrate how big Cam Boozer is. I'm very well aware of his measurements. I know that he's listed at about 6'9", 250 pounds. And I know that those numbers are big. But then whenever I'm previewing games where Cam Boozer is going up against St. John's, and I'm like, well, it'll be interesting to see if Dylan Mitchell can do anything against Cam Boozer. And conceptually, while I'm putting this matchup together, I understand that Cam Boozer has a size advantage over a Dylan Mitchell. I know that in my head. But then when I watch it actually take place in person, I feel like I'm always on the side where I underrate how big Cam Boozer is as a freshman compared to upperclassmen like Dylan Mitchell, how he compares physically to a Zuby Ejiofor, to an upperclassman like a Bryce Hopkins. He had matchups where he was lined up against all those dudes. Cam Boozer I'm constantly surprised again with how big he is as a player. I know how productive he is. I know what his resume and his accolades look like. But the thing that I always come away impressed with is just how skilled he is at the size and age that he is. It's very impressive. And in a league where I personally value physicality and balance, Cam Boozer has those things in spades, and I somehow still will consistently. I'm scouting all these guys. I'm looking at these guys constantly. Like, I'm watching film. I'm looking at numbers. I'm making big boards. I'm writing articles. I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing all these things. I always feel like I undervalue Cam Boozer's size and what he's doing with that size. And that's something that I'm still wrestling with conceptually in my head. I always have to refer. That's why we watch film, folks. That's why film is important. The other player who I want to talk about quickly, actually, there's two. I want to talk about Dame Sarr, who, again, I have recently come out and said that I have him in my first round. And look, I know that he only had 2 points on 1 of 3 shooting. He missed his 1 3-point attempt. He did have 6 rebounds. He did have 3 assists to 0 turnovers, and he did have a steal. I don't know, and I have to go back and watch the film to find out. I don't think that St. John's had anyone drive against Dame Sarr. He was defending Dylan Darling a lot, like really shutting down the initial initiation of the offense so much to where the ball had to swing to the second side. And offense either had to come through the post via Ejiofor, it had to come through an aggressive Bryce Hopkins, or it had to come from like an Osiah Sellers, Ian Jackson, a Jason Sanon. Like, that's what Dame Sarr brings to the table. Tyler Metcalf, I'm going back to that Field of 68 show that we did the other day. Metcalf said, or no, this was on the No Ceiling show that he did with Tyler Rucker, where he said that Dame Sarr will single-handedly force shot clock violations. And sometimes, like, even myself as a draft analyst, like, I can be super hyperbolic to, like, illuminate or emphasize a point. Tyler said that, then we watched this game. He did that in this game one time. He single-handedly, because he has the tools and the recovery and all those things that he has, he can single-handedly force shot clock violations. And that's on a team where, yes, he's playing with Malik Brown. He's not surrounded by a team of world beaters on the defensive end. Like, are there people who are capable? Yeah. But Sarr does so much. He covers so much ground that, again, the fact that he's shooting 40% from the 3-point, from the corners, from deep. Let me rephrase that because that came out in broken English. With the fact that Dame Sarr is shooting 40% on his corner threes. There we go. I did it. He's bringing you that level of skill on the offensive end to go along with 3 assists to 0 turnovers. And he's playing the level of defense that he is. Fantastic stuff. I can't say enough about his defense. I also can't speak highly enough of Malik Brown, who had 6 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 4 blocks. This guy just knows where the play is going all the time, and he has an answer for everything that's thrown his way. I don't know how high I would draft Malik Brown, but I would draft Malik Brown. He's just been fantastic. He isn't really going to give you a whole lot on the offensive end other than just stringing a play along, maybe diving, maybe doing a DHO and rolling, something along those lines. He's not really going to give you a whole heck of a lot on the offensive end. But this guy is just that special defensively that I want to bring him in to my NBA team if I can. Which, let's get to the other side of this matchup. The Yukon Huskies did beat the Tom Izzo-led in the month of Izzo. Yukon did beat Michigan State 67-63. Another fantastic game. Another great game. I've been talking about Terrace Reed over the past few weeks. My guy Maxwell Baumbach of our No Ceilings team has been talking about Terrace Reed for a couple of years and has said that he feels like he's taking crazy pills. I am becoming just as pilled on Terrace Reed as Maxwell is. I need to adjust my board today because we have an assignment that's due in just a couple of hours. Terrace Reed had 20 points, 8 of 16 shooting, only had 5 rebounds. Now I'll say only because coming into this game, I believe he was averaging 20. Okay, so he only had 5 rebounds, 4 assists to 0 turnovers, 2 blocks, and a steal. Now, remember how I said about Cam Boozer, where I feel like I'm constantly underrating the physical size of Cam Boozer because of the skill that he has. Terrace Reed is almost the inverse for me, where I think of when I think of Terrace Reed, I'm like, okay, he's a little under the basket, but very athletic, very strong. He's a little undersized, listed at 6'10", but he's 265 pounds. Looks every bit of that. Like if 6'10", 265 was a cup, he's spilling over. Like that's how full his cup is at that size, if it makes sense. Like he feels bigger than what the measurements would otherwise lead you to believe, right? Very strong, very powerful guy. Dirty Dancer in the chat says reminds me a bit of Kurt Thomas. That's a great way of putting it. I love that, right? Because Kurt Thomas, very physically imposing guy, played in the NBA a really long time, but he was also particularly skilled along at that size, right? You think of Kurt Thomas because he's a hard-nosed defender, he's a gritty rebounder, he's a strong screen setter, that it's easy to let the craft of his game just kind of fall by the wayside whenever you're thinking about him. That's exactly where I'm at with Terrace Reed Jr. He has counters to post moves, and yes, he has post moves. He's not just one of these guys who's going to set a screen and roll and just kind of wrecking ball his way into the paint. He does, he has a little baby hook that every big man has to have to be successful in the NBA. But his playmaking is highly undervalued, highly underappreciated whenever you consider what he looks like as a big man. Because again, he's just so big and bulky and bruising. He's like a refrigerator with legs out there that you just think he's like a bumblebee, right? Like bumblebees per like aerodynamics or what. I'm not a scientist, but technically speaking, bumblebees aren't supposed to fly, but yet they found a way to do it. Terrace Reed is so big that he's not supposed to be as good of a playmaker as he is. He's not supposed to be as light on his feet as he is. He's not supposed to be able to do these little post drop steps and stuff like that, but he does them. And it's just so fantastic to watch. But then you watch him play defense, and he does move like one of these guys who is just like this trash can, garbage pail, lunch pail, hard hat, just rugged dudes who are just going to mess you up on the defensive end. He's just a monster, and he's so big and mean and scary that you can just forget how gifted he is on the offensive end. So I wanted to take a little bit of a moment to give him a little bit of credit for how fantastic he is. Michael Scott called me Peter Dinklage. I don't know. I'm not that short. I am on a good day, I'm 6 foot, depending on how cold outside it is. But I think that has more to do with the way that Peter Dinklage can speak about things. Alex Karaban had himself a good night. Had 17 points on 6 of 12 from the floor, 3 of 8 from deep, 2 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, 3 assists to 2 turnovers, and 2 blocks. Just real quick before I move on to the Alex Karaban discussion, Norm Rad in the chat says, let's assume Chinyelu declares. Chinyelu or Reed? I'm going Terrace Reed. I'm not particularly out on players, but if I was, I can't get with the Chinyelu this year discussion. That's just, I know he's a fantastic rebounder. So is Terrace Reed, and you're giving a lot more offensive potential. Like, I trust the offense to continue through a Terrace Reed in like a DHO playmaking sense way more than I do with Ruben Chinyelu. Like, I trust Terrace Reed to take 2 steps out from underneath the basket. I can't say the same thing about Ruben Chinyelu. Back to Alex Karaban here. A player who we feel like we know what we're getting with, right? Like, he has nights where he is a little bit underwhelming, let's call it. But he has been the same type of player for the past, let's call it 2.5, maybe 3 seasons, where 6'8", 6'9", has a funky shot, but it goes in. Even though he's not the best rebounder, and I'll tell you that Michigan State attacked the heck out of Alex Karaban on the defensive end, he still brings down rebounds. He's still blocking shots. He's still passing the ball within the natural flow of the offense. Just great performance from him. I don't know if I necessarily need to break down his game in detail because we've been talking about Alex Karaban as an NBA guy for the past several seasons. He just showed some encouraging moments against Michigan State. And even though the opposing team was attacking him defensively, he still competed on that end and still brought it to you on the offensive end as well. I've been a big Braylon Mullins guy. I still like him lottery personally. I'm not going to be surprised if he returns. If he does, God knows only how high I'm going to have him on my board next season. But I like him a lot, and I feel like I know what he is outside of the context of Yukon, a system where everyone eats, where everyone is going to have like their lion's share of the role on the offensive end. I trust him at the next level. I don't really know how, like, a different way I can say it. I know what I've seen on film. I know that he hasn't had a full season as a freshman at Yukon due to injury earlier on in the season. A lot of people either forget or don't know that. I like him a lot. He hasn't necessarily been blowing the doors off in March Madness or really the season at all. I just trust him as a shooter. I've been impressed with the defensive ability. I feel like there is more connectivity passing wise on him. It's an interesting game, which leads us to the final game, talking about Yukon and Duke. I had Duke losing to St. John's and I had Yukon beating St. John's. So transitive property, I should have Yukon over Duke, right? I don't know if I do. This is a tough one for me because I want to give the advantage to Yukon, but Duke is huge. Caleb Foster, even though he hasn't been 100% himself, like even after the game where Duke beat St. John's, like Caleb Foster's back on that one-legged scooter to stay off of that foot, preserve himself for, the rest of the season. Pat Nyongba still finding his way, dealing with physicality. It was great to see him dive on the floor, like get into it with Ruben Prey of the Johnnies as well. Those two guys were kind of like the injury concerns. They actually ran a oop very early on in the game. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad neither one of them, if not both of them, got hurt on that possession. I know that there are inconsistencies with the rest of the supporting cast. Dame Sarr could have 8 points or he could have 2 like he did that night. Isaiah Evans could have 25 like he did that night, or he could have 14 or 16. Caden Boozer could have 19 points or 2. It really could swing in a lot of different directions for this Duke team. The one constant that we know is going to be Cam Boozer. How does he deal with the physicality of Yukon? What does the physicality of Yukon look like in this matchup? Do they have moments where they go double big, or are they going to have Alex Caravan pull Cam Boozer out of the paint? Or does Duke elect Cam Boozer to go up against Terrace Reed? I don't know how that's going to go for Cam. So there's some X's and O's stuff in here to where I feel like Coach Shire gets underrated in terms of his coaching ability. I think that it's just, hey, we get a lot of highly touted prospects. Let's just throw the ball out there and see what happens. I think Coach Shire does a great job of actually coaching this team, making halftime adjustments, things like that. I also think that he is obviously much more composed than what Yukon Coach Hurley does. But there's championship pedigree with both of these teams. That's what makes it hard. Eric Ribe, could he be the X factor coming in off the bench? Consistently giving Yukon's two-headed monster that they almost always have every season of, 2 big men on the team. It's almost like kind of like a Sith Lord thing, right? Where I have the one Sith and then I have the youngling that's going to overthrow him at some point. I'm curious to see what that looks like with Yukon. The guard play of Yukon could also be the swing value too. What does Ball look like? What does Demery look like? This is tough, man. I want to say Yukon just because, but I'm honestly not going to be surprised either way. And if you're asking me, like, as a draft fan, which team would I rather watch? I think I would rather see Boozer continue to push on just to see, do NBA GMs or NBA scouts saying, you know what, he won the whole thing. He's been a winner at high school. The winner word vomit. How much of that are we going to get if he wins the entire thing, or if he makes the national championship and loses against Arizona? There's so many outcomes here. I'm really just trying to buy time before I pick a winner. I'm going to say Yukon. I don't feel great about it. I don't feel great about it at all, but I'm going to go Yukon. And that's going to be where we wrap, folks. We got roughly, what's this, like, let's call it 4 hours, roughly, if you're watching live before the first game kicks off. I'm going to get off here, get this all uploaded. That way our podcast listeners have an opportunity to consume this before the matchup as well. Just so y'all know, I'm coming to you live now on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday evening on my birthday. And I had to tell the guys that, yes, I do want to do this on my birthday. I love doing this stuff. I want to do things that I like to do on my birthday. The evening of my birthday, I'm going to be back and we're going to do an Elite Eight recap. So tomorrow night, if you're watching live, come hang out. If you're listening, Sunday evening, we'll have a breakdown, and Monday morning it might be up. I might even put it up Sunday evening. Norrin Rad says happy birthday in the chat. Michael Scott, one of my favorite TV characters of all time, says take care. Antoine Willis says, what I got planned for tonight? Dude, I'm almost 36. I don't plan things. Planning is exhausting. I like to just pretty much do nothing except basketball, be a dad, and be a husband. Just boring, man. This is what you all have to look forward to, by the way. And whenever you go through it, just hit me up and I'll help. I'll mentor you through it. But Hooptastic says happy birthday. Antoine Willis says happy birthday. Norrin Rad calls me a youngster. I appreciate it. Yeah, you're making me blush, Norrin. Thank you very much. But I'm gonna get off here, prepare this show for the rest of the folks who want to listen to it on the podcast feed. But please, if you're, for whatever reason, you're watching, you're listening, and you're not subscribed, please do that. We are on the road to 25K. It's been an awesome season for us, growing. Please continue to allow us to do that. We have things coming up like Portsmouth, combines, summer league, all kinds of fun stuff. We're doing. Corey Tullaba was interviewing Oso Ighodaro, yes, an NBA player, doing a breakdown, talking about the transition going from college to pros, things he's dealing with, stuff like that. We have all these things coming along. Doing something simple like hitting a thumbs up button, hitting a subscribe button, hitting a repost, talking to your friends. Words don't do it justice to describe how important those types of acts are. So if you, for whatever reason, haven't done that, please consider doing that. Help this universe continue to grow. We are loving you guys. We love interacting with you guys. You guys are family to us. Sunday evening, I'll be back to catch up with y'all. Maybe I'll bring a friend. Maybe I won't. Maybe on my birthday, I'll be selfish because it's my party and I'll be selfish if I want to. For the rest of the No Ceilings team, for myself, for my family who wants to hang out with me very soon, I'm going to get off here and hang out with them. This has been the No Ceilings Elite 8 preview, and we'll catch up with y'all next time. Much love, y'all.